This is round 2 of the Sheperdstown Open, which was a couple days ago on March 21st, 2026, and I am playing Mike Baker. His name is Joseph, but he goes by Mike, and he's a friend of mine, good friend of some people I know here in Shippensburg, so very nice guy. Lives in West Virginia, I believe. At least I believe that's his state affiliation. And it's game in 30, delay 5. And this is no engine recap until the very end. And needless to say, I was lucky, but not as lucky as I would have preferred. With that being said, let's hop right into it. He played e4, and I played the good old-fashioned Kara Khan. He exchanges, and then we both just keep developing pieces. And he plays this early bishop b5. I know this isn't supposed to be that good, but I have lost to it pretty disastrously before. Like I think one time at a tournament I had once, I was losing to an 1100 because I fell for this really nice tactic. It went something like bishop g4, knight c3, e6, bishop f4, and maybe a move like knight f6 or something like that. And after h3, I didn't take the knight, and then I ended up getting like absolutely like all this pressure is on me. And then I played here, and then like he might have played. And then in the game, my opponent probably played a move like queen e2 or queen d2 or something like that. And I played a6. Then he took my knight and then did this and then ended up like winning both pawns. Like it was brutal. I won that game. but anyways, so I'm aware about how venomous like bishop b5 can be if you're careless. If black is careless, white can get some really nice wins with an early bishop b5 setup. But I know better now. So I just played a6, get rid of the pin immediately. I invested a tempo to force him to trade. So I have the bishop pair now, but I am really underdeveloped, and he's ready to castle. I play queen c7, and my idea is, okay, I'm not going to allow him, to go on f4. But then he plays knight e5, and I realized that I've screwed up the opening once again. I don't think queen c7 is good unless I have a knight on c6 that could take the knight on e5. But because I already traded off that knight that's usually on c6, well, now he's going to go play knight e5 and play bishop f4, and he's threatening knight g6, defending his bishop, attacking my rook, and attacking my queen. So this is really, really bad. And I go bishop d6. And I'm in for a world of pain. I have two main options after queen g4. They tell you to develop knights before bishops, and this is why. And this this is not pleasant at all. I can go king f8, which I might legitimately do. Like, that might be my safest course of action, to be frank. I have to be a little bit worried, like there could be potential for this knight hopping in. Like if queen h5 happened, I can never play f6 because of knight g6 check. So I have to be a little bit careful, but I'm worse probably, but probably not too much worse. My other options go g6, but I just hate how oh my gosh, my dark squares are absolutely dead. It is awful. If I ever move this knight, he could go bishop h6. If I go h5, that might be my best try, but it feels like sacrifices are going to be looming in this position because of how weak all my dark squares are. So I really thought he was going to go queen g4 and force me to commit to king f8. Admittedly, king f8 doesn't look that bad, but man, do I really... And of course, I can't go f6. If I go f6, there's check, and if king f8, there's knight g6 at the very least. And then if I go here, then of course I'm just gonna be an unhappy fellow. Oh wait, you can't go there. Wait, this has got to be losing. This has got to be losing for black. I guess you can just go knight g6 at a bare minimum, and then if like king here, then you trade, and then take. So yeah, that's logical enough. So yeah, I was really worried. And then he gave me a gift. Let me actually just make sure. Yeah. He played knight takes f7. Because if queen takes, then bishop takes bishop. But of course, I can just take with my king. And now I have a piece for a pawn. So let's see my conversion technique. He trades. He gives a check. I block. He gives a check. I block. He moves. I move. And now I'm getting my rook out of the corner, lining up against his queen. And he goes rook a d1. Nice decision. You know, I could go wrong here. I could play knight e4, which would be a horrible blunder because he can take, and if I take, he takes, and he's up material. He's up like 2 pawns, or maybe just 1 pawn. So it's a good move. You know, I might blunder. Then I play a5. I want to bring my bishop out to a6 potentially, but maybe not. You know, like this bishop is doing a good job guarding e6, and meanwhile he's doing a good job of like stopping me from playing e5. I would love to make my position alive, and you know play e5 and bishop g4 and rook a e8, and then I'm perfectly fine. But you know, he's just continue playing the position. C4, decent move because if I take, he gets in, and it's not so happy for me. I have all these split pawns. Life kind of sucks. So after c4, I just play queen to b4. This rook on d1 can't move to b1 so easily. I'm attacking b2, but really, I'm just not convinced because now, as an after the move, I was like, after queen f4, I mean, like that's a good move, and my life is kind of difficult here. If I ever move this knight, he has a check here on e5. He stopped my queen from retreating back to d6, so he's controlling the d6 and c7 squares, and so I just have to be mindful of that. I play bishop d7, just connecting my rooks, and maybe now I can move my knight out potentially. And he goes b3, I go a4, and now he goes rook b1. The upside of being up a piece is that kind of like no matter what I do, I'm up a piece, so I can always threaten a trade. Queen b8, offering a queen trade, a retreating move, but I honestly think that was kind of my best option. Like, I guess I could go a3 now. And change the move order, but I didn't think, I'm not so sure if I needed that. Like, if the A and B files open up, that's more counterplay. I have more play. My rook on A8 has more, can get more active. However, his rook can get active too. So that's why I decided to go queen B8, and after he moves his queen, I go A3. So like shutting everything down, and saying, I'm not going to get checked. I'm not going to let your rook ever get in. I'm never going to let you double up on the B file. I think it was a practically good decision because less play, less calculation for me. He plays f4, maybe putting his knight behind his f pawn, which seems like a pretty reasonable decision to make. However, this pawn is a little bit loose here with the rook on e1 instead of f1. So I can go knight h5 here, attacking the pawn 3 times. And he can't push the pawn forward very easily at all. So he goes g3, but now he lost some squares for his queen, with both of these pawn pushes, and now I go queen d8. And how are you going to avoid a queen g8? Well, it's not so easy. It goes queen g4, e5, opening up my bishop. I get e5 in. Now I have no issues. Now his rook on b1 looks really dumb, staring in front of his own pawn. Meanwhile, all the actions happening in the center here. My rook on a8 is not good, but I guess both of us can move our rooks towards the center pretty easily. He drops his queen back, I take, and then he gives a check here. I considered pushing the pawn forward, but why do that? I want my extra pieces to be felt, and usually to do that, I need to open the board up. I need to trade pawns. So I take the f4 pawn, and he gives a check. I block. He doesn't want to trade. But now, I could trade, but he gets some strong pawns. This is a passed pawn. It's 100% most likely still okay, but why do that when I don't have to? So I just go rook e8, attacking the queen, and he goes here, attacking my bishop. It's pinned to my king, so I trade rooks, go rook f7, defend my bishop, x-ray the queen, and from here we take the pawn. And now I fork, but it's not really a fork because he just trades, gives a check, I block, and now we're in an endgame where I have a bishop and I have an extra bishop, and and he's not even up a pawn anymore. And how do you convert these? Well, a nightmare scenario is if I trade off all three of these pawns. If all four of these pawns get traded for these three pawns, well, especially for this pawn too, it's, oh my gosh, that's like, it's very close to a draw. And in a lot of scenarios, I might have to just try to checkmate with a knight and a bishop. In a game in 30 delay 5, that's not going to be easy for me to do at all. I don't trust my technique enough. Like, I think if I have 1 minute on the clock with a delay of 5, I might be able to do the knight and bishop checkmate 4 times out of 10. If I have like 30 minutes on the clock, then I think I can do it 9 times out of 10. But a minute or less, my chances are very, very, very low for me to figure it out over the board. I've practiced it a little bit, but not that much. He brings his knight back, and really he wants to target this weak A3 pawn, and I want to target his weak A2 and B3 pawns. So he goes knight B1. I take the pawn on B3. Kind of a fancy move because if he takes and I push and I promote, so very a little bit fancy. So he takes my pawn, I take his pawn. So that was the whole idea. Why take the B3 pawn instead of the A2 pawn? Well, because D4 is hanging too. So now I'm up a pawn, and this pawn remains. That's the key part that makes this endgame easier to win. He moves his knights. From this vantage point, it has nowhere to go because of my knight and my bishop. So he's trying to get his knight back towards the center. And here I put my bishop on b4, cutting off his king from blockading my pawn. So after he moves attacking my bishop, in between move, I give him a check, and he has to decide to go towards D2, which he would be blockading my pawn, but I'm going to go bishop F4, and now this H2 pawn is weak, and my bishop will always guard this pawn from moving forward. But that's probably what he should do. But I mean, everything's losing. He goes that way instead. But now I can move my bishop forward, move my king forward, and here I was, if he goes here, I'm just going to trade off, of course. So he doesn't want that. I actually thought he might go for it because, like, if I'm not paying attention, he can run his pawn down. But I'll be paying attention. I'm not going to let that happen. Worst case scenario, I can always just like run towards the pawn and eat it up. So he goes knight d1, I go bishop b3, and I was really hoping he'd let me end the game in style and go knight b2 because it guards his pawn. But then I could just go king c3, and his knight is trapped, which is kind of silly. And if he pushes the pawn, then my bishop is just in time to defend promotion, which is kind of wild. So he goes knight f2, and I won his pawn. So now I'm the only one with the pass pawn. And so from here, I just start pushing my pawn. He doesn't have enough time to do anything else, and I win the game. He wants to go here, but I'm going to probably just go here, knight b3, and I mean, not much for him to do at all. I mean, really, there's nothing. He can go here, but I'm just going to push, and I still have 2 pawns at the end of the day. So I end up winning this game, and it was pretty straightforward, right? Like but the time did make it a little bit stressful, just because it's game in 30, and I don't have all day to convert. In terms of time management, but I really like this idea of, like, queen b8, offering the queen trade at all times, forcing him to get into a bad position because of using the threat of a queen trade. So, I guess I don't want to say a textbook example of like how to convert a piece up position, but pretty average. So, not every day that a 1650 rated player gives you a piece in the opening, but it's game in 30, so these things happen. I'm gonna hit the game review, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.